Okay, so the next tool that I used, Google Drive, was on one of the websites that was made available to us to choose our resources from. And Google Drive, I personally felt like it was referring to Google Suite as a whole. Because there's not a whole lot that you can do within Google Drive itself. It's more of just like the housing area. So I took that as Google Suite, which I use all the time with my students. So you have like Google Slides, you have Google Sheets, you have Google Docs. So I was just going to focus on one of those and focus on Google Docs because I use it all the time in my class. And I felt like it was a really, really, really good collaborative tool that can be both synchronous and asynchronous, so I wanted to focus on that. So Google Drive is available for free. Anybody who has a Google account can have access to Google Drive, and then within Google Drive you can have Google Docs. So my drive is just here. It's separated by years of my classes, and then Google Docs is within that. You can just make new docs here, or little tip, if you have Google Chrome and it's your primary web browser, you can add this extension, which is Google Docs Quick Create, which I love because it doesn't matter what screen you're on. You can just click that and you can click on any of the different Google Suite tools here, and you can create them directly from there, which is really, really cool. And super convenient instead of having to go through Drive to do it. So that's my pitch about Google Drive. So it's free, and it's got a lot of really cool features. So one of those is Google Docs, and Google Docs I use for so many different assignments in my class. It's my primary way of having my students complete assignments. So all of my classes have different Google Docs. So here's a suffix story that they need to do. A whole bunch of worksheets that they have made available for them. Any kind of assignments that I do, I give them Google Doc copies of it, and then they can go, you can actually set it up so that it'll make a copy for them as long as it's assignment in Google Classroom. So they get their own copy, which is really cool, and then it just gets submitted through that. So I use Google Docs for pretty much everything. But some of the things that I really like to do with Google Docs are peer editing, collaborative writing, and writing roulette, which was something that was mentioned in Chapter 5 of Rice for this reading. Writing roulette was mentioned on page 119, and that's when you have students, like they each have a different piece that they have to write, and they can all get into the same Google Doc and kind of like come up with a story. Rice is specifically talking about creating a story, but I did something like this 2 years ago, where students had to come up with lines from songs as a class, and they all had to give one line of a song, and then they had to figure out in partners how they were going to put those lines of a song together. So this was kind of what I did as that writing roulette, that you have your partners. Gwen and Kirsten were the partners for this one, and they each were responsible for picking one of those lines from the song that their classmates came up with and then putting it in order to make a new song. So that was how that writing roulette worked. So they each did a different line of this song. So that's always really cool because they can edit on the same document. I do a lot of collaborative writing in Google Docs, which was actually from Table 5.3, the peer review and collaborative writing part there. So collaborative writing, I have them do, we do Greek mythology in 8th grade, and during that they have to write their own Greek myth, their own play. So Google Docs is really, really helpful for that because they can all get on the same document and they can edit, and then I can be on their document at the same time, which is where that instructor involvement comes in from the social presence model. The instructor involvement there is I can see what they're doing, but I don't actually have to do anything myself. So one student was quoted saying, the instructor doesn't have to do anything, but they need to help guide us in the right direction. So that's kind of what I'm there for with Google Docs. They can just share it with me through this share button, and then I can be in their document while they're working on it. So I can monitor what they're doing while they're working on it, but I'm not actually doing anything for them. I'm just making sure that they're staying on track. And then they can all be in on it, and this is really cool. If I click on this here, it'll show me what each student did, and they all have their colors over here. So I can actually see what each student was responsible for. This is really, really helpful in group work for me because I want to know that each student is carrying their own weight. So this has been super helpful. I love Google Docs. it's been really, really awesome for me as a teaching tool. As far as the synchronous and asynchronous aspect of it, it is both. I use it as both. We do a lot of synchronous work with Google Docs because we're all in the same classroom together. They can peer edit on this because if you comment on something, like if you highlight something, you can put a comment and say, wrong word. If I want them to peer edit, they can do that. Or they can do this collaborative writing like they're doing in this document. There's a whole bunch of different things that they can do with Google Docs in class, and then I can be on them as well. And then they can do this asynchronously as well because Google is, again, it's another web browser just like my last tool was. So wherever they have internet access, they have access to Google, and they can be on their Google Docs together even if they're not in the same place together. So they can just come up with the time and say, all right, we're all going to get on at 6 o'clock tonight and keep working on our script. And then they can continue to work on it together asynchronously. Obviously, if they all say 6 o'clock, that's going to be synchronous, but they don't have to be in the same classroom. Or, one of them has a basketball game at 6, one of them has field hockey at 4, one of them has something at 8 o'clock. One can be on it at 4, one can be on it at 6, one can be on it at 8, as long as they're all carrying their weight, and that's really what I get to do here and see who is doing what. So it's been really, really helpful. It really has that community and that interaction intensity because they do have to communicate with each other. They do have to have interaction. So I really like Google Docs. I think it's really beneficial, and it's free. So I definitely use it a lot. Would recommend it to pretty much everybody.